So here you have the 180. So this is going to be the face page, the cover sheet of your judgment package. This is not the judgment. Let me just back up a little bit. People will turn just this 2-page form into the court. That's it. They won't turn any other form. They said, "Oh, I turned in my judgment. It was rejected," and I'll see what they turned in. It was this form. You have to turn in all these other forms here. You have to turn in the 341, the 342, the 343, and the 345, and you have to turn in the 343 spousal order and 345 property order, even if there's no property and even if there's no spouse support, and you're going to say there's no spouse support and there's no property to divide. So you still need those. Of course, you don't need the custody or support order if you don't have those, but those are the attachments you need to attach. In addition to that, you see how it says here that there's, on all these line items, that there's a settlement agreement, stipulation for judgment, settlement agreement, stipulation for judgment. There's also a settlement agreement type narrative that will include, which we do that for several counties, Santa Clara being one of them, and other counties that don't strictly just allow you to use the forms. They don't consider the forms to be part of the judgment for some reason, and I just don't know why that is. But we've learned over the years which ones allow it, which ones want a combination, and which ones just want a straight up marital settlement agreement. But what I want to talk to you about with Santa Clara is they want you to write, okay, there's a lot of things, and I'm going to see if I can remember them all, because I have a checklist of my own just for Santa Clara County, because we handle so many cases there. But what we're talking about here is when you're doing this, you're not normally saying your dissolution. You see where it says date marital or domestic partnership ends. In every court in California, you do not fill this in. Same here, where it says divorce, judgment of dissolution entered. Every county, we do not fill that in. Only Santa Clara wants us to write in date judgment filed if it's after the 6 months, and they want you to write in the actual 6-month final divorce date if you're filing your judgment before the 6 months. That way they don't have to write it in, but they will reject your entire judgment if you don't do one of those two things. So how do we handle this? If we are turning in a judgment that we started from scratch, which means we usually have everything finalized in a couple of weeks, we can submit as soon as 31 days after the date of service of the petition. We don't have to wait 6 months to turn it in. So in those cases are being submitted that soon, we know the judgment will be approved in 3 to 4 months. So it will be before the 6-month mark. So we will then calculate out, and we will put the date in here for the date of the final divorce date. We'll put it here, and we'll put it here, and we'll put it on the 190 here. I'm sorry, not here, here. If you don't do that, your judgment will be rejected. The same boxes need to be completed if you're turning in your case after the 6 months. Then you're going to put date judgment filed. You don't do those two things in either case, or you leave it blank, reason for your judgment to be rejected. All right, let me bring this up here. Stop that. Okay. What else was Santa Clara? So we talked about the 6 months or date judgment filed on the 180 and 190. They want us to, you want another thing. They want you to use, okay, I got to bring that back up again. Sorry, guys. They want you to window entire screen. Here we go. So they want you to 99% of the courts want us to mark this default or uncontested divorce. They want us to specifically mark by default under Family Code Section 2336. This is only, there's actually some other courts that do that, but mostly Santa Clara wants us to mark this box. Also on the 170, all right, we're moving right along here. This is how different Santa Clara is, people. On the 170, when it comes to the type of case, remember we already talked about this a little bit. If you have a default or default with agreement case, which is the type of cases we tell you to submit, so you don't have to pay a fee for the response. In every other court, we mark that this is proceeding by default because it's a default with agreement. See how these match up. Santa Clara wants us to mark that it's uncontested, even though it's not an uncontested action. It's so bizarre. See, uncontested is here if it's a response filed. So these boxes would normally match up. Uncontested, when it's uncontested and a response filed, then yes, you are marking uncontested here. But not when it's a default with agreement. But Santa Clara will reject your judgment if you do a default case, default with agreement, and then you say that this matter is proceeding by default. So that's another change. Let me see before I change this, if there's any other things different with Santa Clara. No, that was it. So you got the settlement agreement needs to be done differently. You need a combination of forms and marital settlement agreement language. You need to have obviously the proper spouse support termination waiver if it's a marriage longer than 10 years. So that's in every court, as well as the child support reserved jurisdiction language, if that's what you're doing. And again, that's for every court. So Santa Clara, much different, tons of cases up there, and happy to take your case if you find yourself in Santa Clara. We just started a new one today, and we have another one coming in tomorrow.